Joining me now via Zoom, she is the director of the new documentary Living with Chucky, Miss Kyra Elise Gardner. Welcome, Kyra.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks for having us as part of your junket. I know you're probably doing a bunch of these today. Is this your first press junket?
I did a press for Fantastic Fest in my festival circuit. So I've had the warm up and now I have the actual junket.
So my first question, what I'm curious about is how did this get to be a movie? Like, what was the thing that said, you know what, we can make a doc about this? Was this your idea? Did somebody approach you about this? Like, how did it come to be?
It started as a short film that I did in film school at FSU. My program is one of the few, I think, that taught documentaries at the time. So it was actually forced. It was a forced class. And I, after watching all the films that we had to for class, felt like the documentaries that were more personal to the filmmakers were the better and more interesting ones, in my opinion. So I was originally setting out to make a documentary on what it was like to grow up with my dad as a special effects makeup artist, but that was a little too broad. So we focused it on something that has kind of been at the core of his career for my life, which of course is Chucky. And from there, I did a 7-minute version of the short film. And after its reception and taking it to the festival circuit and having way too much footage for a 7-minute film, I was like, this deserves a feature-length movie. Even if I'm just doing it independently by myself, I can figure it out.
How old were you when this sort of came into your life?
I was around 4.
Oh my God. So you're probably not much bigger than the Chucky doll itself at this moment.
No, yeah, yeah.
Can you talk a
Yeah,
little bit
because
about that and kind of like what it was like going back and revisiting this territory and talking to these people who helped make the movie and maybe saw you as kind of a rugrat when you were growing up?
it's interesting because it's something that's been involved in my life ever since I can remember. So to look at it objectively is actually very hard because this is my baseline for normal, which is why I probably would have never thought to have made a documentary on this had I not had that class in film school. Because to me, it's not as interesting in terms of just it's my everyday life. Like Chucky sits on my living room couch and that's just my life. But yeah, my first memory was obviously being very traumatized by the dolls. And then over time, just this being this constant kind of pain in the ass at the time doll that was in my life. And then over time, finding like such a big appreciation for it. And as I started going into filmmaking, further just appreciating like my dad's hard work and what it takes to make these movies and to keep them going after so many decades as well. And then yeah, like I had heard David Kirshner's name and Don Mancini throughout like my entire childhood because my dad also did Hocus Pocus with David and things like that. But I never knew their faces. I had never seen them, not even as a kid, because my dad Seed took place in Romania. So he was out of the country for 6 months on that. And then everything else is filmed in Canada since. So it was like this separate entity of like like extended cousins almost that would go take care of my dad and then he'd come home. And then through the process of making this documentary, it's like I got to meet all my extended family members for the first time, which was awesome. And then kind of be a part of the family now in a different aspect.
What was it like for them going kind of retreading this old ground and kind of talking, because you talked to Don Mancini who created it, so he's there from '88. He's there from inception before you were even a thought in anybody's head.
Yeah.
What was it like kind of taking these people down memory lane and getting their experience on it? What was their feeling about it?
It was interesting because they've been doing this for so long. So my greatest fear was like asking, the same questions that have been asked for 30 years as well. So it was like really trying to find avenues for them to have the opportunity to speak about something different about it. And I think because I was also asking about the personal side of spending time away from home, spending time with family, they really almost seemed to like open up more in terms of it being a new thing to talk about in relation to Chucky. And then sometimes they'd like remember something that they had forgotten, or John Waters remembers that the puppeteers used to like play tricks on him on set and things like that. It was interesting to like go back in time with everybody. And yeah, it was interesting. Some of them I interviewed right after Cult of Chucky, so they were really excited to have just been working with everybody, and you could see it in their face of like how sad they were to come back, like, oh, and be separated from their filming family for a minute. It was interesting.
You know, you got Jennifer Tilly, John Waters, who's a freaking legend. Was any of that intimidating for you to talk to these people? And how were you able to kind of rope them in and get them to talk to you?
Because they kind of are extended family anyhow. I don't think anybody was like, no. And it mainly just came down to timing. Jennifer, I was a little intimidated to meet, not because of the celebrity factor, but because she just, like, when you walk in a room, it is Jennifer Tilly. Like she is just such a like big ball of energy, and like very interested in talking. And also that interview was a little intimidating because it was right before she was doing the red carpet for Halloween Horror Nights that year. So they were like, you have 45 minutes with Jennifer. And I was like, oh my God, I have to do this and do it right. And with John Waters, that was a little surreal because we went to his house to film it. So just like being in John Waters' house, not many people get to say that. And it was cute actually, because after we were done the interview, he asked to take a Polaroid picture with me and my cinematographer. And I guess he keeps a book of everybody who's visited his house. And so it was like really weird for John Waters to be like, can I get a picture with you guys before you go? I was like, yeah, can I get a picture with you before we go?
What's interesting about this too is now I'm coming from this perspective of like a non-Chucky fan. I knew the movies existed. I didn't even know that there were this many movies.
Yeah.
You know, like it's. I mean, I know that there's. I mean, Cult of Chucky is an aptly named film because I think there is one in real life.
Yeah.
What do you think this film and what does it mean to the people who worked on it, but also to the horror community, and what do you think it means to the genre?
Well, I hope it's something for the cast and crew to have like this moment frozen in time where they all were talking about each other and so fondly and lovingly that even if and when, knock on wood, the day that, you know, the Chucky franchise comes to a close, that they'll have something to look back on with everybody involved that they love and look back fondly on. So that warms my heart thinking about that, though. And even in editing it, I was like, these people have no idea. They just said the kindest thing about the other person on the same exact story. They would have had no idea that they would tell the same story about each other. So that's, I hope it means something like that for the cast and crew. And also for the horror community, I hope it provides like a bigger insight into just how hard it is to get these movies done and made, especially after budget cuts, especially after you know, straight to DVD. It's like to the horror fans, it's like I wanted you to know how hard they work making them, but also it was so important for me to include the fans in the documentary itself. There's a whole section where we talk about them because the movies wouldn't keep continuing without them. So almost it's also like a love letter of like, thank you fans for keeping franchises like these alive. So I hope it would just mean like the documentary itself would mean almost like represent that like union, if that makes sense. And at this point in time of like a love letter to everybody.
What do you want in terms of the future of the film, and then what's next for you?
I would hope that people of older generations coming in are still learning a few new things about their favorite franchise, if it's their favorite franchise. And then for people who aren't just, you know, into the Chucky franchise, they can start from the beginning and learn and maybe want to go back and revisit all the movies, especially before the new series, season 3 comes out and things like that. But I hope it provides more insight to people far and wide, not just like in America and across the world, but also Maybe there's potential for it to be in like a collector's edition, box sets, things like that, so that it can reach an even wider audience down the road. And as far as my career, I am currently working on several things. At the moment, I have another documentary that hopefully gets put together on the making of the Foo Fighters movie Studio 666. And then getting back into the narrative headspace. And yeah, I'll keep everybody updated on my endeavors on social media if that's a thing. But as we know, filmmaking, it takes time.
Where can we find you and your work on the web?
Yes, I don't have a website because younger generations are like that. But my social media handle on Instagram is Kyra E. Gardner, and that's usually where I post about anything that's upcoming or coming out, and things like that.